2019 was an absolute stellar year for movies with huge blockbuster hits, searing indie dramas, and award winning critical darlings. And now that we've closed the door on one decade, we look to the future for what's next. 2020 has its work cut out for it. With no Star Wars or Avengers films to compete with 2019, it'll be a tough year for box office receipts. But there are still some stellar movies set to be released this year. So in today's adventure, we will be counting down my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2020. Number 10 is the sports drama The Way Back, directed by Gavin O'Connor and starring Ben Affleck. It's funny how much I love sports movies, considering I don't watch actual sports ever, and couldn't care less about them. But you put sports in movie format, and I'm sold. And this drama looks set to absolutely wring every bit of emotion out of my body, and I would expect nothing less from the director of Warrior. Seriously, I weep at the end of that movie without fail, and I expect this movie to do the same. Ben Affleck plays a tortured man haunted by mistakes he made in his past, and he begins to mend those broken ways when he is hired to coach the basketball team he played for back in his school days, as he turns this ragtag bunch of players into a team. Gavin knows sports dramas, and Ben looks to be back in top form after lackluster films in Triple Frontier, Justice League, and his own Live by Night. Look for this to be one of the most gripping dramas released this year. Number 9 is the mystery film Death on the Nile, directed by Kenneth Branagh and starring an all-star lineup with Branagh himself and other heavy hitters like Gal Gadot, Letitia Wright, and Armie Hammer. It's the sequel to Murder on the Orient Express, and we find ourselves catching up with Hercule Poirot on holiday in Egypt when he gets caught up in a love triangle gone murderously wrong. And who doesn't want more murder mysteries? After the success of Orient Express and the absolutely mesmerizing Knives Out this past year, we are in the throes of a resurgence in suspense driven thrillers with more twists and turns than a NASCAR course. And with a stunning location and all star cast, this movie has all the makings of a hit at the box office. Now just give me a taste of that trailer already. Number 8 is the sci fi thriller Tenet, directed by the king of thrillers, Christopher Nolan, and starring John David Washington and Robert Pattinson. I don't even know how to describe this movie, but insane is definitely one word that comes to mind. Wikipedia has the plot described as a secret agent is tasked with preventing World War III through time travel, and if that doesn't sound like the dopest movie ever, then I don't know what would. I may not have liked Dunkirk or Interstellar that much, but one thing you can always count on with Nolan is a mastery of big budget practical effects and some amazing shot selection that will always wow and astound, even if the script leaves a bit to be desired. But I'm hoping Tenet is a return to form in the vein of Inception and Memento, my personal two favorite Nolan films. But one thing's for sure, this will be one of the biggest hits of the summer. And with good word of mouth, I can see this making Inception money. Number 7 is the epic science fiction film Dune, directed by Denis Villeneuve. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. And starring an ensemble cast with Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, and Dave Bautista, all tackling the award winning source material. Villeneuve is one of the most prolific directors of the 21st century, helming amazing sci fi classics like Arrival and Blade Runner 2049, which makes him the perfect man to adapt this epic tome, and he has amassed an insane collection of actors to help him translate this book to screen. And beyond acting, they got one of my favorite screenwriters working in the game today, Eric Roth, who's written such classics like Munich, A Star is Born, and one of my personal favorite movies, Forrest Gump. Early footage already has people raving about this film, comparing it to one of the best fantasy films ever in The Lord of the Rings, so I am expecting huge things from this film. Now, the plot is too thick and insane to go into, so I suggest everyone take the year till its release date on December 18th to read one of the best sci fi books to ever be put down onto paper. Number 6 is the new Pixar film Soul, directed by Pete Docter and starring Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey. Fox stars as a jazz musician on the verge of breaking out when his soul is separated from his body and transported to the U seminar. Now he must work with other souls to escape the U seminar and return to his body before it's too late. Pixar continued to use heavy themes of death and longing to propel family driven animation, and I would expect nothing less from the mastermind who gave us Monsters Inc., Up, and my personal favorite Pixar film, Inside Out. I fully expect to be sobbing by the time the credits roll. It's amazing to me how touching and cathartic these children's films can be for grown ass adults. It's a testament to their storytelling ability that they managed to continue to make films that push the boundaries of not just animation, but film as a whole. Number 5 is the 25th installment of the action adventure spy film series James Bond, with No Time to Die. After the abysmal Spectre, James Bond is back and hopefully better than ever as he is lured out of retirement by an old friend to help find a missing scientist, which puts Bond on a collision course with a villain the likes of which he has never faced before. We know what to expect at this point in the franchise: fast cars, loose women, huge stakes, crazy action. But I hope they can rediscover the thrilling chases of Casino Royale mixed with the globe-trotting majesty of Skyfall. The action we know will be amazing as always, and Daniel Craig looks set to go out on a high note, reminding us all what made him such a captivating Bond in the first place. Though it will be interesting to see where Bond can go from here. I, for one, would like to see Bond return to his more campier days, a la Roger Moore, with an actor I think could tiptoe the line of camp and seriousness all too well: Master Obi-Wan Kenobi himself.
Hello there.
Continuing the spy game is our number 4 pick, The King's Man, directed by Matthew Vaughn and starring Ralph Fiennes and Yaman Hunso. Set decades before the first two Kingsman films, this film has our heroes banding together to fight back against a collection of history's worst tyrants as they plot a war to wipe out millions, with one of those villains being that old devil himself, Rasputin. And if you're not already sold, I don't know how to help you. I personally love the Kingsman films, and the way they meld comedy and action working perfectly together is so enjoyable. Between Sam Jackson's lisp in the first one and Elton John's hammy performance in the second, I expect this film to continue that trend of hammy performances. I also love the usage of War Pigs by Black Sabbath in the trailer. It freaking sold me on the movie alone. The only downside is the film got pushed back from February to September, making my wait even more agonizing. Number 3 is the sequel to one of the best suspense thrillers in recent memory, A Quiet Place Part 2. Directed by John Krasinski and starring Emily Blunt and Cillian Murphy, this film looks set to continue A Quiet Place's deadly suspense as we open this horrifying world up further than their barnyard dwelling of the first film. Our family ventures into the unknown and quickly learns that the creatures that hunt by sound are not the only threats lurking about. I was pleasantly surprised by how much I loved the first one, and the second film looks set to continue that love by building upon the themes of the first while moving the plot in a smart manner. The family is going to learn real quick that the greatest monster anyone can ever face is man. I only hope they can find a way to replicate the terror and suspense I felt in the first movie during the birth of the child. Seriously, that was one of the most thrilling moments I've had in the cinema in a long while. The world's greatest action hero returns in our number 2 pick, Top Gun Maverick. Directed by Joseph Kosinski and starring Tom Cruise, Jennifer Connelly, and John Hamm, Top Gun Maverick sees us returning to the classic character after more than 30 years. Maverick is training a new set of recruits and will confront the ghosts of his past, culminating in a mission that demands the ultimate sacrifice from those who choose to fly it. Tom Cruise brings the absolute best of everyone working with him, so expect this movie to fire on all cylinders with amazing practical effects, stunning photography, and actors chewing all kinds of scenery as they struggle to keep up with Tom. Let's hope there's still some magic left in this story that deems it worth telling, and if there's not another homoerotic shirtless sporting scene with the boys, then we riot. Now, before we get to our number 1 pick, let's run down a few honorable mentions that just missed out on the list. Black Widow, Wonder Woman 1984, Onwards, Mulan, and Jungle Cruise. Now, our number 1 pick is going to surprise most, but anyone who knows me knows it's right up my alley. It's Promising Young Woman, directed by Emerald Fennell and starring Carey Mulligan in this deliciously twisted revenge tale of a woman tormented by an abusive past as she uses her smart and cunning abilities to tarnish revolting good guys' reputations. It looks shocking, twisted, and phenomenally good. I love movies that use heavy themes to create demented genre films, and this one looks like it could be the unsung hero of 2020. Now, I haven't known too much about Emerald Fennell before, but she is most definitely on my radar now, and I was so happy to learn that she was the second season showrunner behind one of my favorite shows, Killing Eve, so I fully expect this movie to bring the goods. And that's our list. Let me know what you think in the comment section and what your most anticipated movies of the year are. As always, if we've tickled your fancy, feel free to subscribe, and I hope to have more coaster and movie fun up soon, and until next time, we'll see you at the movies.